individuating has been a big pattern of getting clear on like what do I want in relationship, what is nourishing for me, both like romantically, but also in a work environment. And then also being willing to walk away when I realize like what's around me is not really what I want.
It's fun to do interpretation, and I think we get a lot out of it, but it still leaves it in the mind and leaves it like, oh, maybe, oh yeah, am I doing this? Do I need more balance here? Am I doing this? But when we actually like draw the energy directly into our lived concrete experience, that's when we get like the thing, like the message, the next step, the next inspiration, like how to really utilize this energy.
To return to the dream and ask these symbols or places, what do you want me to do to honor? Like you called it cutting a deal, but I just want to piggyback that point, that how powerful that is, because I also had a dream, a few months back where this symbol kept lingering in my mind, and I was like, okay, let me go back and ask what it wants. Welcome back to another episode of Messages from the Deep, a podcast for dreams. This time we got to do something different and special where we invite the dreamer on to read their own dream. And we have the dreamer here to weave in and out as we interpret the dream, to get feedback, to get deeper insight, and to see the real time of what it's like to share your dream with others and to be able to bounce off personal experiences and hear from different angles. So it's a very rich, elemental conversation that we get to have with the three of us. And the main thing that we explore are the symbols and the power of particular symbols, or power symbols, we can call them, where there's reoccurring shapes, figures, animals, characters that come in and meet us again in new cycles throughout our lifetime, and how we recognize this and what is it asking from us. We also explore masculine and feminine dynamics, relationships, and also the environment and the community and the people we have around us. Is it nourishing to us? Is it taking from us? How can we recognize that? And what is it trying to tell us? So, throughout this dream story, we get to explore some really vital themes when it comes to anchoring into our truth, where we need to integrate in order to individuate, and where we're moving towards when it comes to growth and evolution, and how we can also challenge ourselves by playing with these elements and integrating them through action, not just analyzing and intellectualizing, but how we can actually bring them into our waking life and see an immediate difference in this practice. So, this is a very rich conversation, and we're very excited to share with you this new format that we're playing with. Of course, we'll still have different, whether it's just Michaela or just me, or it's just the two of us exploring a dream. We would love to have this be a more frequent occurrence, to invite the dreamer in. So if you're interested in being on the show and you want to share your dream, then you can be on here and have the conversation with us and get that real-time feedback. And yeah, it's super fun, and we're very excited to share this one with you. And it feels like it touches, as always, on some really potent collective themes that are happening right now with authenticity and the integration and balance of our inner masculine and feminine, and also integrating the shadow, walking the shadow, acknowledging the shadow, and how that is quite a vital lesson that we're experiencing individually and collectively. So, with that all being said, I hope you enjoy as we enter the dream. All right, whenever you're ready, Eric, go ahead and share the title and begin sharing your dream.
Okay, so the title of the dream is Call to the Wild, or Call of the Wild. And this dream was quite a bit ago, so my memory is not exactly the most keen, but I'll read it off what I wrote. And so I'm on a property with a woman I know and recognize, and we'll call her Kay for the purpose of this discussion. and this property is unknown to me. I go into a room like a shed or a detached garage, something of this kind, and this is far away from the main house. In the room of this garage, I find four little baby jaguars, and they're about the size of my hand. I find them super cute, and I delight in their presence. A fifth little baby appears. The thought crosses my mind with a sense of concern or worry. Where is the mother? I then look up. She's on a shelf looking down at me. She jumps down to the floor in front of me. I feel a bit startled and uncertain about her presence. I ground myself deeply in my body, look into her eyes with a firmness of presence. There is a mutual recognition and respect of each other. I emote a sound and she goes back to her perch. Relieved, I close the door to the shed with all the animals still inside. I share with my friend what happened. Later, there is a party. I am eating a salad when someone tells me there is not very much food. Still feeling hungry, I stop eating, wanting to respect the needs of the group. I walk with my friend Kay. As we walk, we hug each other, we hug each other in an affectionate way. She comes up behind me and like wraps her arms around my chest and belly, which feels comforting. Our relation feels modest, affectionate, with a mild sexual undertone or tension. We then arrive at the pool. There's another beautiful woman that I know there. She's with another man. In this moment, I notice a bit of jealousy. In the dream, I recognize the pattern and smile at it. The boogeyman's. This sensation passes quite quickly. I go to the diving board, asking the owner if I can use it. I put my hands down to touch it, and a piece breaks off. It had worn down from the intense sun. I apologized to the owner, feeling a bit bad for breaking a piece. Later that evening, I returned to the shed. I open a door with curiosity. The large jaguar runs out of the room, and it chases some of the guests at the party. Eventually, it comes to me. I try to shout and emote and ask for help. I feel a bit abandoned and helpless. As I call for help, nobody comes. I ground myself deeply into my body, looking into the jaguar's eyes. I feel its power. I recognize my own power. It returns to the room. I notice another large jaguar in the room. When it comes to confront me, I punch it with a light jab, kind of pushing it back, keeping it at bay, a few times in the face. It returns to the room, and we close the door. I feel more confident after the encounter and more capable of overcoming challenges.
Perfect. Thanks, Eric. So, we always like to start with a couple context questions just to get your personal context of the dream. So, do you remember how you felt when you woke up from the dream?
No, but I wrote it down. uh, okay, so I felt empowered and entertained by the story of the dream. Also, I felt a sense of appreciation for the Jaguar spirit coming to greet me.
Perfect.
I always like a good adventure, so something like this is quite entertaining.
Perfect. And yeah, we just wanted to get your personal background context, your own personal symbols or associations, if you have a personal association with Jaguar or any of the other parts of the dream, the characters, the environment, the emotional themes, etc. So if any of those relate to your life when you had the dream or even now currently, you can let us know, and then that's what we'll use primarily in our interpretation and feedback.
Okay, so the Jaguar has been a totem I've worked with for many years now, and even in my earlier life as a child, I can recognize its presence, even though I wasn't fully consciously aware of it in the moment. So it's a hindsight situation. And to me, it represents, this power I've always enjoyed, the aspect of stealth and moving beneath, in the shadows, and also this ability to sit back and observe, and then when the time is right to strike. And yeah, so and it has associations with the deep feminine. There's power with the jaguar, and then in the context of the woman in the dream, I do not recall the second woman I saw as to who that was and how I related to her. The woman we called Kay, though, she is still in my life, and I actually spoke with her yesterday after probably it's been several weeks or something. But Yeah, she's been a very influential force in my life. She's a Libra, and I can be a bit fixed in my orientation with the way I see things. And so she helps to bring in other perspectives, which has been helpful with me with like technology and AI and these different things and being open to looking at it from other lenses. So I really feel her as an ally and a dear friend. Um, yeah, I don't know if anything
That's
else.
perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, thanks. This will be interesting because this dream, usually we do dreams that have happened recently, but this was a while ago. And so we'll get some hindsight perspective in real time and see if like what, if this dream was predictive in any ways, if it was precognitive in any ways, and how it related to your life in the future. So that'll be interesting. But lastly, what if you could know one thing about this dream, what would you want to know? Or what was the most interesting detail to you in this dream?
Yeah, to me, this shed was like this really mysterious place with all these animals, and uh, a lot happened there. I remember in the context, even when I was writing the dream, it was like there was a lot more details that I didn't even really fully write out. But it was, I would say, in my experience, like the highlight of the dream, the walking around the party was more so like this little side quest or side little thing that happened, and then but it was more so focused on the shed incidents.
Perfect. Yeah, I can see in my version of this dream when I was hearing it and reading it, I can see it so clearly. It's a live one. So, okay, perfect. So this dream specifically, we always start with a title. And titles are really great because it seems kind of just like a fun little add-on, but it's actually way more than that. Titles really give hints and clues to the emotional undertones and themes of a dream. You never know what somebody's going to title their dream, and often you'll listen to a dream and think of your own title, and then what they title it is like something totally different. And it really does give like clues and hints to what the dream is kind of about from their perspective that they might not even know because it's just coming off the top of their head, but it actually is like quite revealing. So this is a perfect title to demonstrate that point because this title is so revealing to what at least I consider to be the main themes of the dream, which are an invitation to step into my own personal individuation and personal power in a deeper way and away from um, any commonalities or normally accepted comforts or ideas or groups of people or ways of living life. And so Call of the Wild is like such a perfect title for what I consider to be like the main most important themes of this dream. Primal or spiritual sense, it's like the 4 is the house and the 5 is like what makes a house into a cathedral or like a spiritual place, because the 5th point is then going up into the higher realms after the foundation has been built. So I thought that the fact that like the 5th Jaguar is kind of an introduction in terms of the way it was temporally given in the dream is really interesting and gives clues to like the overall themes. If the themes are about like stepping out into something new, well, what kind of new? Is it a new career? Is it a new romance? Well, I might say it's more of like a new form of spiritual or psychological understanding in my journey.
Yeah, it's also the fifth point is the head, as you were saying, like the head of the body. You have the foundation and the inanimate, and then the fifth actually makes it come to life. And like the stars, five pointed, and also in the tarot, 4 is the emperor. So you have that structure. But then when you go to 5, you have the Hierophant. You're not only the ruler or the head of the house, but you're now actually being a voice. So it's also like connected to the throat. You're carrying on a message to others.
That's exactly in the theme. I love the part about like the voice in the throat, because to have a voice and to be a leader, especially since we are dealing in the dream with group dynamics, you have to be saying something different. And the only way you're saying something different is to go on your own individual journey and path. So we took some notes in the first round about hands and hasta and the nakshatra hasta in Vedic astrology, and the hands representing healing, control, and mental power, that all of which ties into the themes of this dream also. And we put that in because you said in the dream that the jaguars were the size of your hands, and when I read that, I just had like such a stark visual of like hands and jaguar, like a jaguar almost sitting in the palm of my hands.
And now that you're bringing that up, I'm just realizing it's like the
Yeah.
perfect connection to the number 5, because there's
Oh yeah.
fingers and like also that, yeah, leadership, almost like grabbing, reaching out seems to connect to the hand. Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, totally. Um, okay, so yeah, then we're getting to the question, if there's 5 babies, where's the mom? Great question. So the mother jaguar jumps down and there's like a confrontation. I really like this point of the dream because in most dreams, if when a like large predatory animal is involved, like I mean, even in my own, the immediate reaction is to run away, you know? And so if this were my dream and my immediate reaction in the face of a great power and a powerful animal was to stand my ground and like do the eye to eye confrontation. That's fantastic. That's like, it's a confirmation of, to me, it's a confirmation of all the work I've already done to confront my own personal power and confront my fears, confront my shadows, and integrate them in a way that I'm not turning and running from the things that, make me feel uncomfortable or scared or whatever it is. And I've done a lot of work already to, just done a lot of personal work to integrate all of my strength and power. And I feel like when animals kind of like, I feel like this is almost like a presentation of like babies to me. And I feel like when animals like kind of want to like introduce you to their new litter, it's a sign of like safety and respect. And I would think that this is a huge gift, if this were my dream. And just a reminder in general, like the way we kind of see dreams is not just symbolic, but also quite literal, especially when dealing with primal forces like an animal. The symbology is definitely applies for sure, like power and feminine energy and correct timing and mystery and magic and the unknown. But also in dreams aren't just symbolic, they're also literal. And when I mean that they invite us into direct energy exchange with archetypal powers and energetic forces that are alive and well at all times. And so not only can I see the jaguar as a symbol for something, but I can also see it as a direct energy exchange with a greater power in which I am invited to take in their power, their primal energy, and then specifically depending on the animal, their traits and habits and skills and abilities, like you were saying earlier, like the ability to hide and stalk and have the right time, pounce when the time is right, etc. And we'll get into that more in a moment.
Actually, I just want to pose a question that I feel like would fit in everything you're saying, to Eric, because another thing that you brought up was children. And the 5th house of astrology actually rules children. And that's also the house of creativity. So we're bringing in the fact that creation is being activated, with the hand being something that you create with. And then the 5th child and the cubs. And then at the same time, the 5th house is connected to Leo, and we're facing these this feline power and the symbol, and they're black, which is also yin. So I keep seeing this strong pattern of the feminine essence, creativity, and creation is coming through. So I wanted to ask, Eric, do you feel like there was an initiation when it came to creativity or embracing the feminine essence in your life during that time?
Yeah, I would say so. I was doing quite a bit of painting at that time, and a lot of very deep archetypal mandalas were coming through that then wove a very potent dream that I'm still dancing and navigating. Uh, yeah, and I'm still in this process of lots of creativity. Lots of things are flowing through, and we're actually in the process of building a gazebo with some sacred geometry principles and stuff. So that's kind of exciting.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I love that's also like creating and building and painting. That's bringing in that yeah, the hand movement and that creator spirit is being activated, seems like.
And I should also share that when I paint, it's not something that I plan and go and do. It's a meditation where I will pray on something and then allow the brush to be guided and the process to be guided. So it's this dance. I listen and then the masculine, the hand, the expression.
And that's very feminine, I feel like, to allow it to move you or to come through you. Do you feel like that is something that's new for you to, or that what has appeared through your channeling and your creations has shifted in the past 6 months or so?
So that ties in, I would say, to the group dynamics because for me to flow in this way in nature or in my own creative process is very effortless. But to then bring this into dynamic relationships in the context of work and other things, it's something I'm learning to express more and channel more, bring that aspect of myself more forward.
Yeah, that feels like it perfectly brings in that Hierophant imagery for me, because to communicate and to not only step into creation, but to be able to communicate that with other people around you, to be able to have that be received by your community or the people that you're with. I want to bring it back to Michaela if you want to connect.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Because I feel like to jump kind of to the end, I feel like this dream ends at like the point where if it were my dream, I've really stepped into my personal power, but it didn't really go beyond into integrating back into a group. So I wonder if like so it's just since this dream was a while ago, I wonder if that timing aligns with like that person process. Or and I wonder if there's like hints in the stream even to that question since we are reading it now. So now is also relevant to the dream, even if it was first presented a while ago. So let's keep that in mind. That's perfect. Actually, that's it also jumps kind of right into the next detail, which is so I have this confrontation with the mother jaguar and I emote a sound and she goes back up to her perch. Um, and I wrote down the note I wrote down was like, I speak her language, which reminded me of what you just said about like listening and channeling while you paint. It's like an exchange of information, free flowing information that's not necessarily language, human language. So yeah. Anyways, what was so yeah, I the other note I wrote is that I feel like if this were my dream, I feel like I was kind of summoned to the shed. Like it's not like it had a big sign on it or like somebody told me to go there. It was just this like calling and feeling and nobody else went and looked and it was far away from the house and I was kind of just drawn towards it naturally and that's kind of like in times of spiritual growth also it is a summoning or like just the title the call to the wild is definitely a summoning, it's like this nonverbal movement or like pull or magnetism towards doing something that maybe can't be explained in the moment, but it's all there. So I really like the next detail is like I'm kind of I leave the shed and I'm back integrated back with the party and back with the group. And I really laughed at this detail, which was the salad moment. That was a huge giveaway to me. If this were my dream, I was like, this is a really important moment with the salad because first of all, so I sit down with the group and I'm served food, but it's a salad and there's not even enough for everybody. And I just leave hungry. I'm like, so what, I forget the exact words, but to like settle with the group, I just leave. Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I'm still hungry, but I'll leave the rest for other people as well. And I just thought this was so funny. First of all, it's like our first real indication that I'm being, if this were my dream of being called into like to individuate and to step into my personal power, that's my whatever is unique to me, and unique being not shared collectively or even tribally amongst a group, but is that's just for me, something that only I, like a dream is just for you or just for me. It's like something only you can channel for yourself. So all of the things, the creativity, the spiritual insights, whatever is just for me and my uniqueness, what is going to make me the most unique person I can be, and that grows our potentials for life, that actually in the end goes full circle and makes us even more relatable to collective and group dynamics. But that's a tangent for another day. This is what I'm really being called for, and I can see that by the fact that like the what is being offered by this group that I am currently in or that I was in the past isn't enough for me anymore. And it's certainly not enough for my greater powers. Are you going to serve a jaguar a salad? No. Disrespectful, And there's not even enough anyways. So I would feel like wherever I was at is just like it's a good reminder that like there's not really a lot here for me anymore. And oh, I see what I wrote. Asked to sacrifice my needs for the group. So I would ask myself, like maybe still relevant, but especially in the past, like where was I sacrificing my own personal needs for the sake of the group? And is that really serving or benefiting me? And who even is the group? It's not like I was sacrificing myself for my family or for my children. It was just like a group of people, Is it really that? Is this the energy exchange I really want to be in, And I would say that the greater powers, even archetypal collective powers and my own personal power is calling me into something deeper, and away from what I've already created for myself in terms of like dynamics around me. And so I think the rest of the dream was interesting too, to kind of see that refinement process. I feel like in the second time I was going through this dream, I kind of got a different idea of the two women, and I feel like they represented kind of the refinement process of reorganizing my dynamics and personal relationships. It doesn't also, I will note that it doesn't have to be with people either. It could be my relationship to ideas or ideologies or habits, or beliefs. It could be people, but it doesn't have to be, they could be standing in for a non-physical dynamic, that I have. But I thought the two women were interesting kind of refinement process. Like there's one woman who after I feel unnourished by food comes and brings me comfort. And that's kind of like, to me, if it were my dream, I saw her as like, oh, this is one thing I can keep with me. It's like when we're growing and evolving into new systems and new ideas, it's not like we burn everything to the ground. You take what's useful with you and then move forward with the tools that are still working, And I feel like she was kind of a representation, Kay was a representation of like the things that I'm going to keep with me in my life and like take with me through. And I felt like the other woman who I see by the pool with the other dude was kind of a representation in my mind as like something I maybe wanted to keep with me, but it's not allowed. Like I have to leave it behind.
Yeah, I feel like there's another thing coming through with the women for me. And lately I've been getting deeper into Jung with the Red Book, and he keeps bringing up, or something that really stuck with me, is that externally, he calls it the world of men and events, that he spent a period of his time with external achievements. And that when he returned to his soul, it was a dry and parched place. Like he had forgotten to nourish his soul and to actually spend time giving to what really mattered. And to me, that internal is so feminine. And in Jung's work, we have an anima and an animus, which is going to be the opposite gender to us. Like for you, it would be the feminine, Eric. To have a feminine figure come to you is, in a sense, like meeting your soul and to have that inner union. So it's interesting that she comes in, it feels like it's almost like a reminder, because like there's that lack of nourishment externally. I'm not getting what I need from here, maybe returning to myself, tuning into my inner feminine, seeking comfort where my soul is actually going to provide that nourishment that I can't get outside of myself. Yeah.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, I totally agree. And that actually goes well into the next scene where we're at the pool. This was an interesting point for me. I feel like this, I was like, I don't know. The rest of the dream, I feel, oh yeah, it's like, I feel like I can see it clearly. And this was the one scene where I'm like, there's a lot of options here that I'm not totally certain on which one is the most relevant. So we'll have to hear from Eric what he thinks afterwards. And a lot of times, like in generic dream analysis or like Jungian psychology, a pool, like they like to differentiate between different bodies of water, since bodies of water are such a common theme in dreams. And so like the generic kind of interpretation would be like as the in comparison, as like the ocean might represent a collective unconscious, a pool would be more like a personal unconscious. So we could play with that idea. I'm not like completely sold, but I think that's like a good place to start playing with the imagery of the pool. So like a personal subconscious, personal emotion, something like just underneath the surface, yet also available and safe to explore. But there is, I wrote down, there is an outdated approach to getting into this environment or getting just beneath the surface or into like the realm of subconscious and emotions, and that's the diving board. Like the diving board is broken and it's worn out by the sun, it's old, it's no longer useful, and actually it's not even mine technically, like it's somebody else's. And so I thought like perhaps maybe like there's an old approach that's kind of worn out that can be updated or even just thrown out altogether, because to get into the pool you don't need to go on a diving board, you know? Those are kind of nitpicky details, but I feel like there is something about like an access point that's broken and old, and the feeling of guilt when I break it, which is funny because it's kind of one of those things. If you look at take the dream really literally and pretend it's like, a waking life scene. If I'm like at a party and somebody's hosting and the diving board is broken, like crumbling, so like so much that it's like gonna break off in my hands, it's not my responsibility, it's the host to be like, don't use the diving board, it's not safe, but like I feel guilty. So there could be something in there, like letting go old approaches, feeling guilty of not doing things in the way I used to do things, and is it okay if I do something else different, all of these kind of things. That's just coming from my own personal experience, so you can elaborate on that or throw it away if it doesn't make sense to you at all. Sure.
Like, saying something really important though, because as you're saying it and I'm receiving your notes and what you're noticing, I feel like it's such a clear, for me, the metaphor that's coming through is like this route that someone else has given to me, like even if it's religion, conditionings that we've been given, a way to plunge into our spirituality or to be in touch with the other realm, to be in touch with creativity. If this is my emotions and my unconscious, maybe I think that there's a way, or there's a way that's been given to me in my surroundings to access that, but it's not working, or yeah, it's not allowing me, and that there's a totally another way. Like you said, I don't even have to use this diving board. And you're so right. Like I shouldn't even feel bad that this way isn't working for me, that someone else has provided.
That's perfect. Thank you for saying that. That's a perfect summary of like what I was kind of trying to get across. So we'll see we'll chime Eric in a sec and see what he has to say. I'm interested to hear it. But yeah, just to wrap up, the last scene is, I'm coming back to the shed. I feel like I like this dream because it's just such a good, like, it feels like there was an ending and a middle and a beginning, and that's always satisfying. So I return to the shed and there's kind of like an outcome, and the outcome is that when I open this, like portal to my personal power and my allies and my protection and my magic and my mystery, it busts out and chases the group or the guests away, which is such a great metaphor for like being in the situation where feeling, oh, I feel really inspired to do this, to go this one way, but my friends, my family, my old belief systems, my old way of doing things keep saying I should do this, I should do that, and like there's a push and pull until finally it's like no, like busting through and like letting out and being just going for it, and I think it's a good confirmation that that's the right choice in this moment for me and the right way to go to, because when I call out for their help or assistance with this, with the Jaguar, nobody comes to help me. So it's like kind of another confirmation that like my path, my call into the wild, like it's the right time, it's the right way to go. And I don't, I have everything I need. I have the power I need. I have the guidance I need. I have the protection I need. I don't need anybody else to approve or come with me or say what I'm doing is the right move. Like I have, it's all inside, like my inner confidence of here is here. And also there's another confrontation with, there's another Jaguar now. And to me, although this wasn't explicit in the dream, to me, I feel like this is the male counterpart, because why wouldn't it be, where there's a mom and babies, then if there's one more adult Jaguar, it's probably the dad, right? So, and I feel like there's another hint to that where I like, instead of like the non-violent confrontation with the female Jaguar, I have like a slightly more aggressive confrontation with the male Jaguar, even though like by punching it in the face, even though they both end in the same, in like a good, peaceful, like mutual respect kind of way. So I thought that was a great full circle of like bringing in the masculine energetics of it all and like bringing balance of the feminine and masculine, and the creation of both of those aspects, as in like when man and woman come together and create children, a child isn't just balancing or a 50-50 harmony of masculine feminine, it's its own thing. It's greater than the sum of its parts, and that's what is a new creation. So I feel like I feel like if this were my dream, I'll just read my notes. If this were my dream, to wrap up, the Jaguar is more than just a symbol. It's an energy exchange that's ready for me to, it's ready to be fed, ready for me to feed it with more than just salad. It's ready to be utilized and brought out of the closet, so to speak, or out of the shed, and like really brought into the light, and have a mutual exchange on my new path to individuation. And something like a Jaguar or like a primal energy force can feed me with power. I can also feed, there's an exchange. I'm not just taking, there is an exchange, and I can also feed it with power, using the salad metaphor again, by honoring that, by honoring the gift, by honoring the invitation, and by trusting the invitation and trusting the energies and the relationships I've created and the bonds I've established with these energies, and actually going for it and embodying it and utilizing it, and making these bold choices to go after what nourishes my soul and not just keeps me safe within a safe norm or tribe or group, etc.
Yeah, the first time we went into this dream or looked at this dream, I feel like the key words was that it felt like an initiation dream, or an activation, as you're saying.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so Eric, we would love to hear your reflections and input.
Yeah, so earlier, as you were talking, it came up in me that the shed also is like symbolic, because I wanted to bring in like the hermit, and that's been a big archetype within my life. And this shed is almost like this like hermit's cave, but then upon going there was like some, cute little shadows that I could tango with, and then some bigger shadows that required more respect and acknowledgement. And then, at the end of the dream, having the large jaguar that really confronted me is like almost like sparring with the, because my sense in the dream, even when the jaguar was coming to me, like I was not trying to hurt the jaguar, but it was more of like keeping at bay, like, come at me, and it's like, no. And so that's very interesting as well, because in the dynamic I've been in these past months, the man I've been working with, I've been seeing, the aspects of where I can project my own father onto him, and where there's been moments of like jabbing and sparring. And so it's interesting you mentioned the masculine component there, because it's really felt like dancing with these shadows. And it would be interesting, and maybe I can share with you a painting I did like 4 years ago. But in one portion, there's actually all these silhouetted black jaguars, and that I've been sparring with for a long time, it seems. So uncovering and uh, yeah, it's definitely been an initiation being even in this environment that I'm in now, has been doing this work with the farm. And individuating has been a big pattern of getting clear on like, what do I want in relationship, what is nourishing for me, both like romantically but also in a work environment. And then also being willing to walk away when I realize that what's around me is not really what I want. But sometimes we have to go and try, and experience and be like, whoa, what does this feel like? And it's like, yeah, maybe it's not what I thought it was going to be.
I like that you say shadows because that's something that I think a word that we didn't even really use the whole time. And the fact that I didn't really see it in that light of, and you bringing up that that's like these shadows have been lurking around, or it's like you facing these little and big shadows. And I like that versus just looking at it as these creatures or power symbols. And it's interesting too, because I'm even just comparing it, the fact that me and Michaela are women and you're a man, that almost like we are identifying the shadow and the dark as a power. And it's something that you're more so facing, and maybe because it's different from you. And so it is your shadow. It's like opposite from who you are. And in your waking life, you're dealing more with the masculine energies. So I guess to tie that in, I noticed that wording. I'm curious to your relationship with, because I feel like from just knowing you briefly and just even speaking to you now, that I feel like you have that balance aspect. That you seem like someone who really embraces flow and those more feminine essence. But do you feel like that is a working relationship in progress, or like what do you feel like there's a balancing or needing to integrate or stepping into the masculine or the feminine more in your life?
Yeah, so definitely it's been a dance throughout my life. So when I was like 19, I was very much into entrepreneurship, and I learned a lot about the human body and how to optimize like nutritionally, the mind, the blood, all these things. But my priority was like, I just wanted to win. It didn't matter what it was, whether it was business or whatever. And so from there, around 23, 22, I went through some healing crisis type situations and initiations. And then I went very, very deep into the feminine, and too much so in a way, and to the degree where that needed to be balanced. And so bringing the masculine back in has been, the dance in that way. And then learning through the edges of like, okay, that's too far. And that's like, um, yeah, you can find the middle when you know the edges. And even with there's been this refinement, even I mentioned with the sparring with the people in my environment. It's like very symbolic of, it's like I went to this place, like this shed, maybe it seemed like safe, some safe place to go and be alone. But then there was all these like shadows and things that were there to be confronted. And then one of them got out and chased the guest, and so that's like the shadows that are coming out, and then like causing agitation maybe in the environment. And so learning, uh it's been a lot of learning of how to deliver, I guess, the wisdom, because I see and perceive so much in the environment. And knowing when to speak to people and how to speak to them, and not doing it from an emotionally reactive place. And that's very symbolic of the jaguars coming out and being like attacking the people. And so meeting them to then not have them meet us in the external world. I think like Jung famously said something about, if you don't meet your unconscious within yourself, you're going to meet it outside and see it as fate.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, bringing that in, just the fact that it's like nurturing your emotions. If you have a more of a relationship with the jaguars, with their shadows, with your emotions, then it wouldn't happen maybe spontaneously.
Yeah, that's really interesting to bring the shadow element in. I love that perspective. And there is like you said, Cher, there it is almost like two sides of the same coin, Like confronting shadow is where we gain our personal power from, and our courage to face whatever life throws at us. So I think that all works in really well, and it's awesome to hear your perspective and like how that can, you can almost like see it in both sides. Like, am I being chased by a shadow, or am I being chased by my power, and what's the difference? Where does one transform into the other? And those are really interesting questions to explore. I was it reminds me also of like when I was thinking of, if this were my dream, like what action plan would I want to do with this dream? Because we always encourage our dreamers to embody a dream message in a certain way, like in a direct way, not with intention, but with actual direct action. Well, intentional action, but you get it. So like instead of saying like I'll meditate more, it's like, okay, I'll meditate 5 minutes tomorrow, right? That's what I mean by like direct action rather than just intention. But it was just reminds me, I have a friend named Eric where I live who works with Jaguar primarily, and as a symbol, as a totem, but more so as a direct energetic power. And we were talking about a dream that I had with him the other day. We were on a walk, and he was telling me that his newest way of ritually feeding this power and this relationship with Jaguar is that he's going out at night, and it's like really dark where we live, going out at night and walking around, like to strengthen his ability to see in the dark and like be more like a jaguar. So for him, he comes from a native Mexican tradition. So again, for them, like in traditional cultures, like symbology, it's not as nothing is really symbolic as it is far more literal. So they wouldn't even go really with jaguar as a symbol, but more so as like a direct interaction, and like how do I directly become like this energy, and then kind of you draw symbol and personal growth things from there. But like, so for him it's much more of a direct practice. Like if a jaguar is coming to me and presenting itself, it's like, how am I going to, in the most direct way possible, embody this energy and force? So he was telling me how he walks around at night to try to sharpen his his eyesight and be more like a jaguar. And that I thought that was funny, not because you both share a name and an animal totem, and that happened really recently. And also in terms of the feeding part, the first thing I would do is like eat something, like literally eat something that a, a jaguar would eat, like a rare burger, like something like really satisfying to like the energy inside me. And it's not just about, because when we do those actions that like are kind of taking this as like a direct energy exchange, then while we're doing those actions or the result of those actions, that's what really kind of like sparks new insights and new paths on the dream. Because it's fun to do interpretation, and I think we get a lot out of it, but it still leaves it in the mind and leaves it like, oh, maybe, oh yeah, am I doing this? Do I need more balance here? Am I doing this? But when we actually like draw the energy directly into our lived concrete experience, that's when we get like the thing, like the message, the next step, the next inspiration of like how to really utilize this energy. So that's really when like the thing comes alive, and like it's the essential part of like the practice of dreaming and not just the discussion of it. So or if this were my dream, I would definitely want to do something that embodies the energy and message of the dream, whatever that is for me.
Yeah, I like that you also bring this into your, was it conscious dream work, where you ask people if there's a distinct symbol. Because even for you, Eric, you mentioned the shed, but of course the jaguar is a huge part of it too. But that to return to the dream and ask these symbols or places, what do you want me to do to honor? Like you called it cutting a deal with these symbols. So you meet it and you ask like, what do, in a way, like bringing that spirit and energy and like soul retrieval work is something we talked about before. So honoring it by asking like, what do you need me to do? Like you already pointed out what your other friend did walking in the dark or eating a burger, like things that a jaguar would do. But I just want to piggyback that point, that how powerful that is, because I also had a dream, a few months back where this symbol kept lingering in my mind. And I was like, okay, let me go back and ask what it wants. And it became clear to me that I needed to write in by hand because this figure looked like a hand. And it was angry. And I wanted to ask like what it needed to feel satisfied. And my promise was like, okay, for the next 30 days, every day I'm going to write by hand. That writing isn't just going to be something I show up and do on my keyboard for work, that it's something that I can also honor for me personally, because it's something that is important to me outside of work. And the second I did it, it wasn't even like the end of the 30 days. It was like the first day I started writing like just one page, instantly felt my energy shift. I instantly felt more inspired, more creative, and it felt like it just pulled me out of this lull period. So I just wanted to share that as like how powerful and of a reminder that is to actually implement action from all of this interpretation and understanding of everything. Yeah. So I think that's perfect segue into asking Eric, what action do you feel inspired by this dream?
Yes, I really like that darkness, walking in the dark. That something I've always actually enjoyed in general is the darkness, and so that's something definitely that would be fun to explore. As well as I do enjoy the crawling. It's something I've done quite a bit of, like the animal crawls as like a form of
Nice.
exercise, and it's one that I've worked with the jaguar before with. So I believe yeah, I'll explore that again because it was one that I really could connect and enter this flow state almost of like how does the jaguar's paws even move as it's doing its stride or a low crawl or these types of things. Um, and yeah, the it's interesting you say with the meat because we had elk liver last night, raw elk liver, my buddy and I. So that was quite nourishing. And we could actually taste the berries and the grass and stuff that the elk ate, which was kind of
Wow.
cool. And you can
Wow.
feel the spirit, when you eat something fresh and live, and it's nice.
Perfect. Definitely feeding the jaguar there. Primal energy body is happy.
Yes, yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great action plan. I would love to hear if like you get new insights and inspirations when whatever you do when you do your action plans, if it's at night or crawling at night.
Well, one thing too is something, tying into like the belief systems that we were talking about with the pool and whatnot. The It's been such a sorting process of like the practices and the beliefs and like the way I've lived my life and gotten by and things that worked very well for periods, but then now seeing that like okay, this practice is shifting and is this still useful? I try it. I'm like, okay, maybe I don't need that anymore. I try this. Like, is that nourishing? Is that nourishing? So it's been a lot of trial and error in that way, but definitely a sifting process of what is really important. And also to tie in the feminine, like the deep feminine aspect, has been really getting clear on what do I want in life. And that's been a big question of like, is it really true? And looking at my beliefs and looking at like these different aspects of self and asking, like, is it really true? And seeing the cycles that we create, through our unconscious into so many layers of detail. Like even being here in the environment I am, I can see so many aspects of my past that are continuing to spiral out, but now becoming aware of them, being like, well, do I even want this? Like, no, like I don't need this anymore. So I went on a tangent. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think that's perfect because that's like goes along with not only the themes of the dream, but that's a perfect segue into action plans because it's good to take intentions into the action plan. So I'm going to do a physical action. I'm going to go walk at night or I'm going to go do, like practice animal crawling and like using my body in a different way. And when I do that, I can bring with me these exact questions and ask the archetypal energy, the jaguar energy or whatever energy is, if this is in the future, something else that's more relevant at that time, I can ask then for help and for information and for guidance. And then when I'm doing my action, it can be like an intentional, almost like an intentional meditation where I'm bringing an intention, I'm bringing a question into this sort of ritual action and seeing what comes out of it. Because there is, like, to me, the greater powers are our allies, and they do have, we can ask for their guidance and help and energy to help us navigate through the dark or the unknown, so to speak.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say about the darkness was that the based on the beliefs that I had, it was like, oh, okay, like go to bed early so you can get up early, do the things, whatever. But I've seen just even in different circumstances of my life, like there's a lot of creative power that happens for me at night. And then so if I have these rigid beliefs around, oh, well, I need to go to bed so I can then get up and do the thing or whatever, then there's not that space. So I feel yeah, this is a call to explore that space again and open that up and see what creativity lies in the darkness. I had a friend, she mirrored to me one time, she said, after like 7 p.m., you shift quite a bit and you become, more, I don't know how she described it, but different.
I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah, I feel like nighttime is such a creative time because someone said that to me once that they felt more creative at night because the world is more quiet and rested at that time. So there's more space to expand. Yeah.
Exactly, like everybody goes to sleep, there's less chatter, there's less energy, there's less noise. Did this dream for you, did the dream take place at night?
Yes, and more than likely I was sleeping outside because I
Oh,
was in
cool.
Virginia at the time and I would sleep out there. And so in the
Oh,
darkness, yeah.
nice. Yeah,
I had a
because
little journal that I would scribble on, and sometimes it was incoherent because I couldn't see it.
totally. Yeah, I was just wondering because I don't know if that was specified, but in my mind, I pictured it all happening at night. So I wanted to know if that
Oh,
was.
well, so and that's so the scenes with the shed seemed to be at night, but then like the party thing was more daylight. And also, if I remember, it was like very dry.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to hear how the dream actually presented because, yeah, in my dream, everything was at night. But now that you mention it, I can see how it flip flops. Dreams do that a lot where, like, first it was day and then I was in the same place and it was night, but then it was day again and then it was.
Yeah, I feel like that really mirrors the themes that we touched on, that nourishment and the fact that like we go from night where there's a lot of power and things coming out to play and then coming back into the day. The sun is shining. It's almost like mirroring that the dryness is mirroring, is there a lack of nourishment or yeah, in my waking life that could be attended to.
Well, and with the I think now to like the pool instance, almost like going into the cave in the night and working the subconscious, and you come back out into the world, and there's like, oh, these jealousies and these problems, and oh, you go to the pool and you try to do the thing and it breaks, and then it's like, like, uh, yeah, it's interesting to see that aspect of it as well, and the challenges that our day brings. And the in regards to the jealousy thing, that's pretty funny actually, because the upon reading your reflections from the other week. I went to Colorado to give a talk out there this past weekend, and it was almost like an exam for my jealousy shadow because there were so many situations where it came up. And my teacher, she says that when something is coming up a lot, then it's because it's ready to be reconciled. And so it comes up and it comes up and it comes up, so you can like. So yeah, I felt like my final exam or something. It was like lots of opportunity to acknowledge and pay tribute.
That's such a good point too, because if that was, I'm assuming you said last week, we just had the full moon in Libra, and you mentioned your friend that showed up in the dream as a Libra, and that she brings these Libra traits, and that's also a very like feminine, balancing, discerning sign, and it just came to head this weekend, and now we're in the waning moon, so it's almost like that's usually the culmination point, like it's coming up, and now you're releasing it, and through even expressing, being on this conversation to, it's the like integration reflection period of like that's it, I'm releasing it now. Yeah.
Yeah, as well, like I'm a North node my is Libra, and so it's nice for me to be around wise Libras because they help to show me how to be more Libra. And yeah, with the woman also, that's been something in the past month that's been a big theme has been actually like hugging myself like that and having that inner nourishment without it needing to be this external thing, but actually giving that affection to myself, and it's felt really good. It's been very nourishing too. Which has actually made me feel more whole and in my own boundary because then I don't feel like I need something outside of myself. I feel like good as I am. So that's been something that's been a big theme. So a lot of these symbols, it's almost like there's a microcosmic or, there's like certain circumstances that are coming up, but then there's like an inner experience where like all these aspects are actually aspects of self. And so how can the self then integrate from there?
I mean, Libra is also opposing the self house in astrology, so it's like it's a direct correlation, working relationship. It's on the same axis of self and other. Is yeah, work two sides of the same coin. And yeah, I like that you're bringing it up that this is from such a long period, and somehow it's all come to a head where it's almost in a way externalized or even shown up in the collective for all of us in our world now that this final conversation is happening.
Thank you, Eric, for coming on and sharing your dream with us and giving us, taking the time to listen and give some feedback and reflections. It's been awesome to have you here and meet you.
Likewise, yeah, it's been an honor. Yeah, I love dreams, so it's such a cool thing for me to explore in this way. It's something even in the house we've been staying on. A buddy of mine, we've been bringing up and sharing dreams a lot. Is that as a culture, I think there's a lot of value in that, especially if you're like co-living or doing different things. There's a lot that sharing your dreams can illuminate for the tribe.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I'm stoked to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, Michaela, you host like these dream sharing circles. That's how me and Michaela met, is because she was hosting a dream sharing circle and I went to it. And I think that there's so much insight that comes up sharing it in a circle and getting multiple reflections and all these angles that you wouldn't have. So it's almost like you're seeding from the collective through this microcosm